Final game of Saturday.
Well, we are on to Duke. Yeah, Duke TCU here. Duke versus TCU. Duke is an 11.5-point favorite. They looked very bad against Siena. Again, we're going to talk about that a little later here. Just want to focus on the game right now, though. Duke comes into this one limping a little bit. Cam Boozer after the game says we overlooked them. We thought we were going to get, we thought we were going to blow them off the court. That didn't necessarily happen. We got punched in the mouth, which they did. Credit to Duke, find a way to come back in that game. Jon Scheyer was pretty happy about it. TCU blows out Ohio State, and then Ohio State comes back, and then they end up winning a close one there. So how do you see this one playing out, Grant?
The TCU factor makes this so tough to call because, to your point, I was wondering where you're going when you said they blew them out. I was like, did they? And then you broke it down half by half, and that's spot on. I mean, they're up 15 at halftime, and they lose the second half by 13. They're down late in the game, and TCU is more of a defensive team than an offensive team anyway. So when they were down, I was like, I don't know how they're going to make these shots down the stretch to bring this thing home and come back after being up 15. But they did it. So all the credit in the world to TCU. I mean, that was I think they were 2.5-point dogs in that game. They win by 2 points, so close as predicted. Coming into this thing, in no way, shape, or form would I have said that TCU could keep it close with Duke. The problem is I've talked up Jon Scheyer so much, and so it's only right for me to criticize him now. Why do you have multiple players coming out and saying that you thought it was going to be a cakewalk? You thought it was going to be handed to you. That's horrible coaching on your part. You cannot let that happen. These 16 versus 1 upsets, they don't happen very often, but the first one happened, I want to say 2018, and then the other one just happened a couple of years ago. So they've started happening as of late. Like, every other year or so, every 3 years, 1 seeds are going down. If you just look at ever since it started actually happening. And that was almost Duke in the spot. The first team in March Madness history, the first 1 seed to be down double digits at halftime in a round of 64 game. That's a serious problem. And when they get to the second half, I'm ironically going to criticize what kind of brought them back in this game. Going to the zone defense, which again helped them out a lot. It really took Siena out of its offensive rhythm, allowed them to get back in their flow a little bit. The fact that you had to do that is an indictment about your game plan, your execution on the day, on everything. Because zone defense is meant to raise a team up because they can't get the job done in man-on-man coverage. So why you had the better athletes. Your guys are better coached than Siena, with all due respect to the Siena coach and these players who played very well. You have the better talent. Your guys are going to be going to the NBA, so they should probably have a better understanding of how to play defense. Why did you have to go to that? Again, everything about this just spoke to them being so incredibly unprepared. Really, the only guy who I would say really rose and shone was Caden Boozer, who was great. He'd been playing great down the stretch of the season, so he deserves credit. Cam Boozer had a typical Cam Boozer game. Like, you could still say he was good, 22 points, 13 rebounds, although even he turned the ball over 5 times and only shot 36% from the field. So just not a good game from Duke at all. And TCU doesn't really change my evaluation of this matchup so much as I just look at Duke. Like, what were you expecting to happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard situation, right? Because you also got a bunch of freshmen on the floor too. Like you have freshmen and sophomores. You only got 1 senior in your rotation, basically. So it's all freshmen, all sophomores. Your best player is Cameron Boozer, who's a freshman. Caden Boozer is rising to the occasion. I don't want to hear any more Caden Boozer slander on the internet because he is really good. He's a talented basketball player. Is he his brother? No, but like he's a very good basketball player. I look at where this team is at right now, and I think this is perfect for them. This was the wake-up call they needed to move forward in the tournament. I don't think they're the national champion. I really don't. I don't know where we were with Duke more recently to where we are now, like seeing how the Virginia game ended in the ACC championship, seeing how this game went. I think this team's extremely beatable. But I don't think they're going to get got by TCU in the second round by any means. I think if there's one seed, I think that's going to come out and take care of business, it would be Duke because of how poorly they played and the wake-up call that comes with that. It takes time for young basketball players to learn how to play in the tournament, right? Like it's really hard to come into a tournament and rely on multiple freshmen to get it done. And Duke is doing that, and they've done exceptionally well this season, but the stakes are elevated a little bit now. And I think coming back in that game, even if it was against a Siena team, You still were down 11 at the half, and you found a way to come back, shut them down, and outscore them by 17 in the second half, which you should have done the whole game. But yeah, Siena wasn't even that efficient overall. 38% from the field, 35% from three, relatively average there. It was more the first half they were really good. In the second half, they just fell apart because they all played 40 minutes.
Yeah, and they only took 6 free throws as well. And don't get me wrong, they were scared to go inside, as they should have been, because Duke has the better athletes. So I saw people trying to pump the narrative. Duke took 21 free throws and Siena took 6. The ref saved them. Well, if you watch the game, Duke was getting fouled and Siena wasn't. So they deserve to shoot those free throws. But that's not me excusing this performance from Duke. It's not me excusing these players, these coaches. Duke deserved, or Duke fans and supporters and people who picked them in their bracket even, they deserved a lot better than what Duke showed them in the first round. I could be getting this stat wrong, but if I'm remembering correctly, this is off the top of my head, there have been 15 one seeds that were losing at halftime and to 16 seeds, and I think they were 0 for 15 on winning the national championship that year. So if you go off of that, Duke's already out of contention. Now, a good chunk of them did still make the Final Four, but again, they're one seed. So you're expected to make the Final Four. You are the best team in your region, and none of them were able to get the job done winning the national title. So that's a tough precedent for Duke to overcome.
Yeah, it's really going to be hard, too, for Duke just in this regional. And I do think they get through the TCU game. Whether they cover, not cover, it doesn't matter to me. I think they're going to win that game. But then you're going to have to face a Kansas team that's probably playing pretty well because they had beaten the St. John's at that time. Or you're going to have to play St. John's. And, Zuby Ejiofor's a dude. St. John's is going to have a presence in the paint, which is going to make it tough for Duke. And then you're going to have to play either a Michigan State, a UConn, UCLA, or Louisville is probably the best case scenario for Duke, I would say. Maybe not a Louisville being in the ACC, but you're going to have to beat a good Michigan State team or a good UConn team, most likely, to get to the Final Four. So it's not an easy path for them by any means. And starting it like this is probably worst case scenario, but it could be best case scenario. It could be the wake up call they need.
Yeah, toughest region. And then if you look at the Final Four teams, obviously we're looking far ahead. We're only, given our day one round of 32 picks, so we don't know how it's going to shape up. Michigan, largely thought of as one of the top 2 teams. Arizona, ironically, is actually, I think, the bookmaker favorite right now. But I'll be honest, Houston kind of being left out of all this, or Florida, the defending champions. Like, if you face one of those 2 teams in the Final Four to get to the national championship, it's just a horrible spot to be in. I think, ironically, that might be worse than going against Michigan or Arizona. Because if Florida is in the Final Four after winning the championship the year ago, by the way, playing a much different style than they did the year before, they figured it out and they're clicking. We've seen Florida turn it on at the end of the season. And then if it's Houston that's there, it's a Houston team that was winning the entire national championship game until the final minute last season, has been in the Final Four. Like, they basically got a vacation home in the Final Four there. They're there every single season. Kelvin Sampson's got experience, and they've got more offense than they've ever had before. So, it's just going to be tough for them. It's going to be tough for them to get to the Final Four. It's going to be tough for them to get to the national championship. And it's going to be, according to history, borderline impossible for them to win it with how they started this tournament.
Yeah, you got right now Michigan plus 410, Arizona plus 340. Duke went from the favorite at like plus 310, plus 320, all the way back to plus 550 now to win the national championship. I think that's warranted based on how they played because, Siena obviously did not win the game, but it showed that Duke had weaknesses. And I think it's really in their experience and their rotation. And, now we're going to start getting to some big dogs. So if you played like that against Siena and you carry that into the TCU game and then next weekend, it's going to be very, very hard for them to get it done.
And you know what's ironic about this too? You see this, I think soccer, I know you're not a soccer guy, but soccer's probably the best example of this, where there are teams that know they are worse than the other teams, so they just sit back and defend the entire game. And sometimes the better team doesn't, their strength might not be that cutting edge final offensive attack, so they end up drawing or they end up losing because they just get so frustrated. Like that, maybe that's what it was with Siena, where Siena had this figured out and they're like, look, we know that we're not a better team, so we're going to do this. We're going to clog the paint. We're going to make sure that we're aggressive on the glass. We're not going to really go into the paint and risk committing turnovers. Like, we're just going to stay on the outside, do our thing. When you play a higher seed, right? When you play a UConn or you play a Michigan State, whoever you end up facing, maybe it's different because those teams think they're better than you are. So it's going to be a more open game. There's going to be more space for your athletes to go one-on-one. And maybe that ends up being a better situation for Duke.
Yeah, definitely. And also too, you rise to the occasion against better teams to give them the benefit of the doubt here. Like they could have played even worse than they did yesterday and still beat Siena. It really came down to Siena made their shots. Duke looked confused on defense at times. I think that was a problem for them. But Duke's going to rise to the occasion against better teams. It's just, are they talented enough to get it done? Because the ACC, I mean, I know they beat Michigan this year. The ACC was not the best basketball conference in the world either. I think that's concerning coming into a big tournament like this. Neither was the Big East. Big 10 was pretty good. Big 12 was pretty good. You have to go through those teams as we get to, the later rounds of the tournament.
Well, Tanner, that was another episode of Ride the Line.
Another episode of Ride the Line, guys. Make sure you keep following along for all the March Madness picks and analysis coming up throughout the tournament. That's pretty much all we're going to be talking about the next couple of weeks. So make sure you guys do that. And Grant, why don't you take us out of here?
That's going to do it for this episode of Ride the Line. We appreciate you all hanging out with us. Make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new around here.